Architecture is a very vast field, touching almost everything and everyone. Be it at its best or at its worst, it largely defines or reinforces people's way of life, from the smallest unit to cities and even nations. Even though the user's experiences might be blissful, to the creators and the designers, it is mostly a rather lifelong, cumbersome journey, which sometimes could be quite overwhelming, especially being in this side of the world. After graduating and plunging into the world of practice, I started realizing some valuable lessons that could have been useful while in studies, so to prepare me for what's ahead. I have since then decided to keep notes of these lessons whenever I could. So here we are, over 4 years of practice and about 7 hobbies later. It's probably time to start sharing these gems to guide whoever might need them, as I or we embrace the next phase of our journeys. This is Gracing Through Architecture. I am Sarafadin Sharif Ishola. Welcome to my podcast. So hi there everyone. Welcome to our first episode, our first encounter on this channel. Like you've heard from the intro, my name is Sarafadin Sharif Ishola. I'm an architect, among other things, but first I'm an architect. So we'll be going through architecture together. However, before we dive into our first topic, our first episode, I would like to digress a bit to give a little more insight about the channel. My journey, particularly like everyone else, through architecture has been full of blessings and lessons. But giving heads up to who might need them might help us all get through this together way more easier. This channel, considering the journey so far, would be beneficial to some individuals more than some. I think the best of them, if I'm not mistaken, are the students. Students, be it in the system or in the system already or currently just joining as a fresher. I believe there are quite a bit of insights or information that we think might be useful. This is particularly given my own journey so far, but whatever that maybe within the scope but a little bit out of reach, we'll be having guests that will help us discuss in stuff that are more specialized on. We'll be inviting guests that are more specialized on certain topics. So that being said, we'll be diving into the topic for our first episode. Today we'll be discussing the shift in thinking as a student to thinking as a professional. There's a lot that goes on into being a student and being a professional, and it all involves how one think or perceive his position, which is very, very different, a big gap in between these two stages. If one is not careful, as being coming out of the realm of being a student, might take a long time before one catches up. These things are not commonly taught on ground, so one has to pick up along the line. So I've noticed some, and the quicker one can pick up on this, the better one gets to find his paths more easier as glide along. And the first point I would like to mention, it is not about how hard you work, it is about the results. As a student, you work. Most of the projects you do as a student, it's aimed at most times we get caught up in trying to impress the design coordinator, maybe the lecturer also. But this is slightly different in the real world. Be it as someone reporting to a boss or to a client direct, it is never, or it is not always the case of trying to impress the receiver of the design, but instead the result that is determined to be achieved by that particular work at that particular moment. Does it solve a problem? Does it meet a particular need? You see, the thing is, we get caught up in putting in a lot of work and let the volume of work be translated in our design, which is now perceived as being hardworking, and somehow it pays off, or we sometimes get to impress the design coordinator and maybe get to scale through without focusing on solving the particular issues that might be underneath. As a student, you don't get to face real challenges, so it is most times about impressing the coordinator, satisfying their need, which is true for real life practice. But some cases you just have to deliver a particular, sometimes there are a lot of underlying problems that need to be solved. The instances of where the number of sheet produced, most students get carried away by the number of sheet they produce, just so it looks like the work done, the heavy work has been put into it. Quite alright, heavy work has been put into it, but in real life, this heavy work have to translate to solving a problem. It's not only about the number of sheets, it has to translate to a result. It has to solve a problem. Sometimes the number of sheets you will need, or the number of drawings you need to solve a problem, is not even up to that. But you have to understand that some projects have time. So most projects have time factors. So when you sometimes you get caught up in trying to impress, producing as much number of volume of design as you could, while the time being set is really not up to what you can work with. So most times you need to cut down the volume of work to meet the desired need, which is something most freshers fail to do, and it takes a lot of time. It takes time for you to get to adjust to producing the necessity or understanding the main problem behind a particular project. Sometimes you really need to bring your game of impression, the game of impressing, but you have to be able to determine when to do what. So it's not about the hard work. It's not only about the hard work. It has to lead to a result. It has to solve a problem. So secondly, most times when students we dream of doing big projects, the skyscrapers, the flamboyant designs, it get really cramped up in our head, and coming out of it, it's coming out to the real world. Designs don't go as flamboyant as you wish. In fact, you hardly find a design as massive as the one you did in your final year project. You hardly work on it in years after coming into practice. So you have to understand that. But still, even working on smaller projects, there's something I later picked up on. Smaller projects where you are allowed to express yourself, show your skills, test yourself. Where you are given the free ground to make errors is always better than bigger projects where you have to follow strict rules per se, or not given the chance to express yourself. A particular example I can remember of this is one of my previous employment. The particular project at hand was finishing or constructing a road for a particular estate we were working on. So when I joined, this was the ongoing project, and I was given a particular detail of that road to draw. to supervise, to design, which is the gutter and the drain. It was very minute, but till date, but I was given the free will to do these designs, and till date, anytime I go through this particular estate, I see it was very minute something, but it meant something. It was the beginning of freedom to express, to know what it really means to actually make an impact in a organized structural system, an organized firm. So this freedom actually made me understand it was very minute, but in that you will be given the chance to do the design, supervise the construction, oversee a lot of things like the labor. It was it will be a minute something, but encompasses a lot that has to do with a bigger design. So by doing that, you learn a lot. So it's not until it is big. In fact, if you can handle the small project, there's no way you can handle the big one. So when you're given the small project, and say I have to mention this, even though you have to be very calculative on how and when to take projects, and how you use the few periods you have to interact with the practical world. We will be doing some episode on that particularly. There's a particular time where you can take on these small projects, but there are times where you have to actually just sit back and learn. There are times where you have to join the big team. We'll be discussing this in a subsequent episode which we have already planned out. But for now, we have to understand that bigger is not always better. The idea that this project have to be big before it's meaningful to us has to be cancelled out. And the last but not the least of what I would like to discuss under this particular topic, when a design fails, or when you get rejected over a project, it is not a rejection, rather an avenue to learn. It is rather an avenue to learn. So it is not a word of fail or pass. It is rather a word of fail and learn, because every project you fail will come back to you in the nearest future, and if you didn't learn from the previous one, you will be down again. And until you learn, you have to keep picking up. So there are so many scenarios for this, but I like to keep this video short. But the point is, whatever your input was in a project, if it passes, good. If it fails, if you get rejected, track your own part, see what you could have done better, and prepare for the next similar project. It is always, if you have to understand that if your team fails to hold a project, everyone has to hold himself accountable for his own part. Whether you did it perfectly, improve. And part of the improvement might be you helping others to check on themselves. This is how a team works, and if you have to join a team, this is how it should be done. So for now, I think we'll keep it at that short video. If you have any questions, if you have any clarification, keep it down in the comments. We'll be sure to check it and reply to you as soon as we can. If you have other questions that are still not pertaining to this topic, be sure to write it down in the comments. Subscribe and share this video to friends and families you might need them. And until next time, build a better world, one design at a time. See you.